Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode where we're going to be looking at the pages from the book of Judges. Last time we were beginning the story of Abimelech, and he is about to take matters into his own hands regarding his fate. He's hired some, what did he call them? Light fellows and vain and light fellows, some mercenaries, to come and do his dirty work with him, and so he does. Now we're about to head into somewhat of a bloody section, so it's just a little heads up. Just so we get back to where we were, these vain fellows come together. They go to the house of Gideon, and after he's died, and they capture all the brothers of Abimelech. Then, okay, could probably zoom in a bit here. So there we go. Then it says, and killed his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, being 70 sons on one stone. So now it doesn't tell us that what stone it was that they killed them on, but I have done it such that the stone that Abimelech kills the brothers on is the same stone that Gideon erected when he took down the Asherah poles and the Baal that were in the town of Ophrah. Ophrah is where they live. So if you've got 70 people who you want to just kill on one stone, you'd have thought that you'd do it in the same town. The mention of the one stone being significant led me to believe that it must be this one. And in a way, it seems to pay back Gideon for what he did to Baal, which is obviously of concern to the Canaanite people being the ones that Abimelech is appealing to. So all the children and brothers and everything are all slaughtered. Here in the panels, you can see they have broken into the house and killed the sisters and stuff as well. And it says, but Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, left, and he hid himself. So here we've got a picture of like a cupboard that's basically upside down, and then inside this upside down cupboard is Jotham, the young brother of Abimelech. Here he flees to the one stone, finds all the bodies, and he's like, no. And I used stylistic colouring for this with the blood and everything. I believed it would just give better impact, basically, if it was all blood red rather than colouring it in not naturally. Oops. Okay. All the men of Shechem assembled themselves together, and all the house of Milo, and went and made Abimelech king by the oaks and the pillars. It was in Shechem. Now, they went and told it to Jotham, and he went and stood on the top of Mount Gerizim and lifted up his voice. So here in the image, you've got the big oak that we talked about, and the pillar. And the pillar is the one that that Joshua erects, and you see it happen in the book of Joshua. On the actual pillar is the words which Joshua made the people swear when they erected the stone, and it's drawn there like it was from archaeology. The on the left, as you look at it, you can see the henchman dude who I was talking about last time, he becomes sort of a symbolic member of his group, who is like his army and his faithful people. And you can see even there he's got blood and stuff on him. And on the right there's Zebul, the guy who comes up later as being like Abimelech's like prime minister. And again in the middle we see the priest of Baal, who is crowning Abimelech. And then as he's crowning him, you hear Jotham cries out, "Listen to me, you men of Shechem, that God may listen to you." And he's up on Mount Gerizim. Obviously, again, real place. This is drawn from photos of the real location. And he starts telling this parable, which to like illustrate his point. It's a funny thing to do, but there we go. He says, "The trees set out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to the olive tree," and the thing that's really weird about it is not so much that he goes into this parable about the trees, but he has to obviously do it from shouting out from a mountain. And so that's what he does. And then this was the first parable I ever drew. And in it I set up the way in which that would be drawn in future with the pink and everything. And here it says, "Reign over us," say the trees. Should I leave the fatness which they honour God and man by me?" Because these the olive trees, the olive oil is what they use to anoint the kings, "and go and wave back and forth over the trees." And so he says no, basically the olive tree. Then they ask the fig tree, and he says, "Come and reign over us." And he says, "Should I leave my sweetness and my good fruit and go and wave back and forth over the trees?" And then we have the vine, so the grapevine. And they say, "Come, reign over us. Should I leave my new wine, which cheers God and man, and go and wave back and forth over the trees?" So he basically says no. But you'll notice it gets more and more absurd as well, and this is something that would, be relevant to the people who heard it, is that the trees are looking for a leader, and they call on these other trees, but they get more and more smaller. So they get like a vine is much smaller than a tree, and they're like, "Come and rule over us." And then finally they come to the bramble, and they say, "Come and rule over us." And he says, "If in truth you anoint me king over you, and then come take refuge in my shade." Again, this is absurd because there is no shade with brambles. They're like, essentially like tumbleweed pretty much. If you imagine what that looks like this, there is no real shade from a bramble. And it says, "And if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon." It's here that we learn that the trees that are trying to get a leader are like cedar trees, among others, but the ones that then I've depicted are these cedar trees, you see. And then in the last panel, they're bowing down to the bramble. But there's an interesting thing here as well, which is that the king is a bramble, so it's like I've drawn him here with a crown of thorns because he's a king of brambles, so it's a crown of thorns. So it's just, that's an interesting thing that comes out when you draw it, these connections between the later story. And then he just continues to speak. I won't read it, but he condemns him for the 70 sons, and just says like, this is a bad idea. And he says, and have you dealt righteously? And it says, if not, let fire come out of Abimelech and devour the men of Shechem and the house of Milo. Let the fire come out from the men of Shechem and the house of Milo and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away and fled and went to Beer and lived there for fear of Abimelech and his brothers. His brother. And then the last panel is Abimelech's crown finally going on. Now we'll conclude there, even though it's sort of partway through a page, but it then goes on to skip forward for a few years and stuff in his story. I hope you've enjoyed this little one. If you're watching on YouTube, go like and subscribe, and if you're on Facebook, don't forget to give it a share, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.